Um, they can be very irrelevant, and they can also make your customers feel like a vending machine that you just insert a card in that gets scanned, and then your prescription items fall at the bottom of the vending machine, like a Mars bar or a Pepsi would be more moral. Um, because for someone like me, and I would have to keep this to myself for many years, was that I know that the two owners would get off determining who they think are their, however they love the word junkie. They had invented a bunch of, just like Christians have the term sinner to indict a category. It was almost like they were trying to build their own demographic out of, and you would think, shit, it's and it truly doesn't even seem backed by any concern for these people's health rights, their privacy rights, none of the federal, and yeah, so combine something like an immersed absorption in Freemasonry, where they're taught things that they're not going to say to you, because then at face it, Freemasonry won't seem like this capitalistic like consolidation of the most popular ideas found amongst the world's religions, but might seem fucked up in many ways, and might seem like if Cardinal Pell was a Freemason, he wouldn't have even had to talk to a judge by this point in his life. I mean, that's what Freemasonry can offer the pedophiles that maybe you would be friends with, or if they were your boss. And yeah. Yes. So with combine their private sector with they're the two co-founders of the entire franchise, with their Freemasons, and you've essentially got, it's just the woman breaking down in tears in the courtroom saying, "I don't know why I heard the voice of God telling me to drown my kids in the bathtub." They don't have the luxury of that sort of a breakdown, uh, after the fact claim to a revelation, and after attaining further insight, we've now learnt wisely. You've got what is premeditated scamming, premeditated rorting, premeditated um, because of it, when they had looked into my story, they'd assumed I was present during the conflict between my blood parents when I was a 5-year old. They'd assumed I was in the room, watching as it happened, and um, see, and yeah, there's ways that the religious right in churches can complement the interests of psych and pharmaceuticals, because you might learn from, call one party C and the other one party E or whatever. Uh, the religious group move in and tell you, oh, you would inherit violent actions from your this or that parent, so you could be violent without knowing it. And then, yeah, it would be caused by genes. But then, for those genes to be armed with what they later call the triggers, you would have to have been present at a scene to have witnessed and learnt from it. So, uh, learn from it in a way that made you feel morally enlightened, or that you'd learned a moral imperative or something like that, or were in favor of violence under certain circumstances, which I'm probably going to have to start becoming. start to be, because I don't want any more skull fractures. I have a knock on my door. So another thing is, as it was stated in frustration by Gary Cairns back when I was at Tuggeranong in the Hyperdome years, that he expressed reprehension toward the imagination. He hated the imagination, or who he'd called dreamers, and that if it's because with the studies that they are into, they can't distinguish between imagination and what could be memory, what could be so even all the worse that they don't have psych qualifications. They will try to represent that they are in league with some sort of with national security, and yeah, I think they're the most pathetically intellectually dishonest, moral cowards, philosophical cowards, and they're salesmen. But they're salesmen with essentially your blood, your family's blood, and the back and forth where one party goes, oh, so is it God punishing the sins of the children through the bloodlines from the sins between the parents? And then so that party and those people that talk then represent that they only wish to understand better, but in teaching what they will teach on their terms, they'll instill what people studying wind up coming to the conclusion is the psychosis needing to be treated. So this solution here is that, or in such a situation, is if you've been wrongfully educated by a religious organization, then deconvert from that religious organization and keep away from them. And I did that, and my one thing that I said, I even put up with, sexual harassment from out of the mouth of Codger Cocksucker Tall, fucking Chodolf Mark B. Nelson, but and then my employer had been made to be too frightened to represent a staff dispute to the two co-founders, or to represent my contention with one of the co-founders to the co-founders. So this is what they need to actually have the guts to say, is we are actually into or in favor of religious falsely accosting you, motivated by our religions, and trying to convert you to our religions, and that we are not training you to be an officer to be a healthcare official in a pharmacy. They need to say that, because then you'll go, okay, well, this is a church, it's not a pharmacy. I'll go find a pharmacy where they're not converting religiously, trying to religiously conscript. So yeah, there are tons of philosophies that are post-Reformation, post-Enlightenment. There's nihilism, and there's existentialists, and there's all these brilliant thinkers. And art has progressed, and I think principles concerning questions of, well, how do you say, where is it if ever appropriate to blame art? And I don't think it's appropriate to blame art for anyone's choices. Religion is really the only system of ideas that we're left with, where you are taught things like, well, this book is the perfect word of a creator. It defies there's no it defies the prospect of terrestrial authorship. It's written from this creator to you who wants to be in a relationship with you. Um, you are not taught these sort of things by art. You are taught first that art is art. You are taught what fiction is. Um, it's religions that are trying to step in between rights flourishing further than they are where they are flourishing well, um, and admit themselves of being the Xerox of a virus and blurring the difference between the real and the unreal, um, to their own end, to, you know, no matter what goes wrong in this world, religion, everything that the next generation is getting with climate change concerns, people that signed in polls saying that they expect God's judgment and Jesus Christ's return to occur within the next 20 to 40 years of their life. I think 40 to 50% of Americans all signed on this poll. And so now, you know, all of these concerns, look at the state that the earth is in, and the environment and climate change, and they'll just see it as, yeah, well, any second now the cloud, Jesus will come in monkey magicking on a cloud, and that will be God's final judgment. So anything you can say, no matter how bad, can be worked into making sense with a religious babble, and that doesn't prove, it doesn't even prove that religion is universal, or a form of universalism. It just proves that it's totalitarian, and yeah, that is a very huge difference. So I'm a person who I would say I share in Sam Harris's stance, that where he talks about belief and consequentialism, that beliefs do have consequences. Christians I see as sort of dwarfing themselves in a way, and you know, I was still trying to understand Christianity better myself when I was the youngest to be offered a leadership position, and you know, now, well, yeah, my anti-Christian views formed complementary to, you deconvert back to an atheist, and then you end up realizing that an atheological comprehension of the theology you were taught, which you might call an atheology, which is you don't make appeal to the assumption of truths to any supernatural claims as you assess essentially the data that's presented to you by religious teachers, and it means you can put I don't have a view that life is a test. Something that Roger Toll likes to insist is an aspect of what, you know. I suppose there's money, but you know, stereotypes. And I was often told at work, just think of the money. If you want to say what was a test, it was the chemist wondering how down I would be with the whole have all the drugs you want and drug party on weekends, but we hope you're into our research projects. Yeah. Imagine a science fiction world where, and ask yourself, how could that be if one person's research methods were another person's symptoms, but they're considered underprivileged, so their education, they're able to be extorted on an intellectual level. And endless scientific tests and medical experimentation can be conducted on them while they're going and reporting what they're experiencing to government level psychs, not in the private sector. And the scientific tests being deemed symptoms by the psychiatrist. So what I thought was, well, if you guys have a double-blind, Sam Harris says it well, that crucial to scientific methodology is not mathematical modeling, it's intellectual honesty. So I would, challenge Roger Tall. He's already would be getting called things like Roger the Dodger. I think he wears his socks a little lower. They'd both often wear shorts, and Roger likes jingling his keys in his fucking pocket. Sounds like coins. And Gary would pull his socks up, which I think was for Roger for when they would for the tea bagging in their research area. Which I wonder if it's space that the Freemasons negotiated. They require for their religious minutia. If I say to you that, well, he's just doing this for money, while there's truth in that, it's not what I would consider a fair enough treatment of describing the truth. So it's important, if you are made to contend with a true adversary, they say, walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you get away from them, you're a mile away and you have their shoes. And as Craig Charles said, shoes have souls, so the Freemasons can think about that. Who knows, maybe in their secrecy a number of them are very moral, but it'd be hard to understand how you've often got this claim that the God of Christianity is an omnibenevolent being. I was talking to a good friend, my neighborhood here these days, earlier today on the street, about I've had a lot of difficulty understanding why this doesn't. So it's seldom mentioned in debates, but Christians say that, well, God is all powerful, all knowing, and all loving, and there are so many rebuttals to that. But what's strange is that the verse Isaiah 45:7, I think it is. I think verbatim in the New International Version of the Zondervan Publishing House Company version of the Christian's Holy Bible, it states, I create evil and I cause woe. I, the Lord, do all these things. So that's a clear statement of an admittance from the God of the Holy Bible to be the creator of evil. So I was talking to him about a story that Christopher Hitchens brought up in a debate against 4 Christians, where he mentioned this man I need to look up the case and read the spelling of the names to know precisely how to verbally say the names. But it was a case where a woman was with young children, were all held hostage, captive in a basement or lower level area of a house, and the woman was incestuously raped by a father for 25 odd years, and the children sodomized. And, eventually the man was caught, and there's just this pathetic sense of his imprisonment because of how old he is. There's this sense of, well, he was in jail, but, fuck, he'll die in jail. He won't even be able to serve out his sentence before he's dead. And how does this... So, and you've got these Christians trying to say, oh, but this woman's justice is coming. All will be made better in the next life. And you're like, so that this problem could be fixed, you're trying to say that your Lord allowed... They sometimes interject and say, oh no, man used free will. You cannot reconcile, and I would challenge any of you to say otherwise, an omnibenevolent, omniscient, and omnipotent creator God, and us as creatures with free will. He made anything that I would do, he would have made, or any crime, any act of kindness, whatever. But Isaiah 45:7, I think it undermines every Bible-believing Christian's claim that their God is all-loving. Look it up, please. I used to think it was a Leviticus verse, but I think it's Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. I create evil and I cause woe. I, the Lord, do all these things. So... so this ramble-gamble bullshit metaphysics, epistemology is a word that neither Roger or Gary understand. It's evidently out of their league, but has something to do with why Gary's frustrated with imagination. Essentially, I don't think that the people that they get together with know how to design a study language technique that knows how to go, well, this article of sensory information was just imagination. It could not possibly be a part of a police relevant case or situation. Now, the price that what people are paying now is because of the techniques that they've got. Any of you now could imagine me, say, exploding, my limbs all blowing apart and blood splattering everywhere, my arms exploding and my head exploding off my body. I grant you all the permission, to do that. But now suppose I was on the missing persons list. Now, if these two owners of Capital Chemist, and you were to imagine, even if you were to imagine while thinking, I hope no mistreatment like this has happened to Luke, and you're imagining me being destroyed at a time that correlates to when they run a check on you, then the two of them will make an advance to have you put through psych, because they operate on two religious principles: seeing is believing and hearing is believing, and they are worse than fundamentalist religionists in that regard. I will combat them both, and I will discuss them and their crime in court anytime they like. But what they do is they do a pansy dance, fucking look at that pansy dress, transy vest. Lukey hates the fag Mason dances, yes. some respects they made me, but I am a consequentialist too, and I haven't demonstrated enough yet. I've started to, except in one experiment that was a combination of intertwining elements like philosophical argumentation and debate with logical metaphysics and with creative existentialist writing and a type of writing that I call brailing, and trying to prove that I think what I think needs to happen is that, and I would challenge the Christians to think about this, what they want to do with their Genesis story is up to them. But you know, as Jesus Christ plays this pinnacle role, what is it that he did, and what is it that he's about, and what's your proofs? Given that Mark's Gospel's written in 70 A.D., Matthew and Luke in 80 to 85, and then John in 95 A.D. Who was he? What did he stand for? And let's debate that. And should we not be thinking about saving him if we were there at the time? You know, you've got Christians thinking of him carrying his cross up a hill going, oh, here's where he conquered death and made us all immortal. But, you know, what do they wind up doing when they believe in John 3:16? Do they wind up taking for gratis that it was a gift to them from God, that a ransom money was accepted for him to be handed over and napped, lined up for crucifixions? The Romans were doing this, crucifying people all throughout the week, like every week. So, you know, it's one thing the life of Brian drew clergy. John Cleese was in a very interesting debate online, and it's posted online about the life of Brian, and he was, I think, falsely charged with being offensive to Jesus. But he talked about being very angry after getting away from Christian educators and learning things like about the uncertainty surrounding the datings of the Gospels, the proper names of the authors of the Gospels. So I'm trying to say that I'm not a Christian because Christians are considered to be followers of Jesus. I think following him, no, I think it's studying and appreciating that from it's reprehensible from the moment that ransom money was accepted, and that he was rounded up and killed. And you know, if they're saying he didn't put up a fight, then I submit to you, as they were executing him by ceremony, that he would have been in a suicidal mindset, frame of mind, more than. I submit that to you that argument has more veracity to it than the right wingers claim that this man conquered death, and gave his life that we may live. They take the Christian movement, from my assessment of all their denominations, and I pitch it back to them and say, well, debate me. They try and do two wrongs make a right type of thing. They take you know, apple eating was horrible, but oh, how amazing our species came to live by the fortunate act of multiple generations of incest, kids impregnating their fucking mothers and their sisters and their cousins and their aunt, fucking, ugh, you know. and the interesting, the Christians wanting to be so opposed to sex before marriage because yeah, perfect originally created Adam and Eve certainly stood by that, didn't they? Who married them? Good one, Christians. This happens a lot in debates with them. They clam up. They take a what I call a bind, a conceptual bind, and then they try and tether it to another bind, and call that process a bond. And it is. I submit it's intellectually dishonest, and I submit that this poisonous viral metaphysics, the Christian poison. You can say Luke Benton loved Adolf Hitler's use of the word the Christian poison. I do, but on my terms, not Adolf Hitler's. But you know, a fundamentalist Christian, I think, his idea of Hitler's idea of a final solution. Fundamentalist Christians are closer to thinking like Adolf in that respect than me. Just calling the call out or the Christian poison. Well, it is. And you know, look it up. Statistical health decline in the bisexual community. It's even an oddity to lesbians, gays, and transgender people. That much of an oddity, and I submit to you that it is because of the pathetic, animalistic love amongst the religious right for crucifixions, eating crucifixions, saying that the body was broken for him. I'm saying, why would you want to play this game? Why would you want to say we're inbred from a garden, so let's destroy the bisexual community? That is all you're saying. Tell me what else you're saying. Yes, as I've also said before, I'm against that golden rule, which the Freemasons seem to be proud of. It's we have good grounds for doubts that Jesus uttered this revamp of Rabbi Hillel's initial golden rule, and it can also be found in ancient Confucian text as well in China. So they had thought along similar lines. But if you think about it, there's a different arc, and it's a whole different premise to getting to know someone if you're operating by this whole do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's egocentric because what makes you what makes you, in respect, question of the respect for other people's individuality, what makes you so elevated that you would treat them as you would have them treat you? Why not get to know who they are? If I see a woman and I would want her to suck my dick, that doesn't mean the Lord gave me permission to grab her hair and slam her in between my legs, because this is how I would have her do unto me. When Rabbi Hillel initially uttered the golden rule, he said, "That which is repulsive to you, do not do to another." And then notice how that changes things. Not for Gary Cans and Roger Toll. You know, it's sad. I understand. I really empathize and feel sorry for capital chemists sometimes. That's why I get too depressed, but I have to separate myself and realize there are legal issues to be resolved. And in a way, I hate, I hate the medication I'm on for pain. I hate that I'm on any medication because I hate being reminded of a pharmacy to some extent. I have been reminded of the Capital Chemist group in particular, but I am refreshed in a way by the fact that there are decent people there now of a second wave, second generational wave. But you know, if you come, anyone who's come from a broken home and survived, it's going to have to be how Capital Chemists go in history, because they're going to be Roger and Gary are exposed. It's only I mean, it's just a matter of the final steps, and they're exposed. But I need to say now that I don't want that to be misconstrued as any intention on my behalf to see Capital Chemists, for instance, completely taken out of the market. What I'd like them to learn is a lesson that I learned quite young in life, which is that if you're like a family unit and it's destroyed, then it's up to you as the individual to rebuild. And so you can originate from something that you yourself loathe and despise. And that's why I'm not a big fan of history. History buffs are very big on contradictory, nonsensical rubbish. History is written by the winners. History repeats itself. It's pathetic. And so, yeah, the co-founders of Capital Chemists are sex offenders, amongst other things, is going to be a matter of public record eventually. There will be comprehensive, you know, testimony. Yeah, Roger Toll as the main what you call him, the alpha. Yeah, I felt I'd really related to this concept of a mega. Largely, it was inspired by attrition from during work hours by Roger, and the way he had the pyramid scheme, which is also part of what he idolizes in his Freemason religion with his all-seeing eye. Freemason shit. I think you'll find it has something to do with an imagery of a pyramid with a giant eye at the point of the top of the pyramid. It's very much how he ran the hierarchy in the business. So my issue with Peter Holt is like, well, this is really pathetic, you know. When I try and tell you that it essentially rights infringements are taking place, and you're telling me you can't even have a conversation with either Roger or Gary because you're terrified of them. Well, how fucked up is that, you know? I'd love to see Capital Chemist, I guess, get real. You know, because what is also horrible about the way that they think is that Gary and Roger are not psychoanalysts. They are not psychologists, and they are not psychiatrists, and they are not policemen. They are not detectives. They are not judges. They are not lawyers. They are not a court. So, if they persist in trying to make a research project out of you, I'm think that there's no closure to it until they're made to face consequences. But their game is, instead of you know, the exposure of, it's going to be more difficult for other people that potentially other Freemasons have fucked around with, because their secrecy is much better organized. And I don't mean better in the sense that I could ever say, wow, you've impressed me. I'm I have well-founded concern for the welfare of my fellow Canberrans, and I think to an extent, certain levels of a priori oppression is ingrained in education. Who offered the textbooks at a cheap price to your school, but tell you that I howl at the moon every midnight because of a trigger. It's I mean, ask yourself why they use terms like triggers. If you know what it means to step back out of religion, look upon and through religious metaphysics with non-theological eyes, you'll see how psychiatry, and I'm open to meeting and having conversations about mind with non-theistic psychiatrists, if it seemed necessary one day. But I already understand why religious. That's why I like to get away from them. I know how limited their metaphysics is. I know how to genuinely win arguments about the fact